Would you call to order the Public Works Committee meeting of June 5, 2019? And may I have a roll call, please? Here.
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 All right. First measure of business for us is to consider the approval of the meeting minutes from May 1, 2019. However, it was brought to my attention by a resident that there may be something that was excluded at the end of the listed meeting minutes. So we will be voting on the minutes as they sit right now, but they are subject to Manager Manfredi taking a look to see if there's any discrepancy there. So with that said, I make a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes of May 1, 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so those minutes are approved. We do not have any presentation this evening, nor do we have any unfinished business on the Public Works Committee agenda. We have one matter of new business, PW 01061319, and this is to reject the 2019 landscape maintenance bid proposal, amend the bid document to be rebid through December 31, 2021. And I'll call over to Manager Manfredi for a brief explanation of this.
Yes, very simply, we put out bids. We received one bid. There were things within the bid that, frankly, weren't to the standards we would want them to in terms of why we only received one bid. So we thought it would be best, instead of doing it for 1 year, that we would do it through 2021 and include more items within that bid, rather than limiting it, expand the bid.
Does anyone from the committee or the full board have any questions for Manager Manfredi before we move forward with the vote on this? Commissioner Myers?
Thank you. When will we see the new bid?
I would hope it's, if not the July meeting, the August meeting. We're taking a look at expanding it from what was in it to include more.
And I saw that. I also saw a lot of paperwork from one contractor. So if you rebid it, will it go out to 3 or more? How does that work?
Well, we'll rebid it, we'll advertise it, and whoever goes to our website or our normal things will obviously get it. I would imagine the one person who bid it will obviously be notified and rebid it again. They'll get notified it was rejected and we're rebidding and what the date is. Okay. Anyone else, it would be the normal advertising.
Just so we avoid something that happened in the past.
Sure.
Yeah, Commissioner Gillespie.
So it did go out to more than one contractor than before, correct?
Well, it was advertised in one newspaper.
Okay.
And it was not sent. Do you guys want to stand up and?
We have more than one. We had a pre-bid meeting. We had more than one contractor came to the pre-bid, but they didn't submit the actual bid.
Yeah.
So only one contractor submitted the bid. So we're going to redo it again and try to make it more. Try to get more bidders.
Okay.
We did mail it out to 6 local landscaping companies in this area before the pre-bid meeting, but only 2 people showed up to pre-bid, and obviously only one person bid on it.
Okay, thank you. I saw that.
That's it.
I have nothing else for you guys, but does anyone else? Commissioner Klein.
So what's different? This is similar scope that we've had come through the township in the past, correct? This contract that we're giving out is something that we've given out in the past.
Correct.
And so what has changed between the bid scope for this, for what we're rejecting today, or being asked to reject, and anything else that has been done in the past as far as the bid package? Is there anything?
Let me be blunt. I believe there was something within there's a procedural defect in the bidding that it wouldn't be appropriate to award the bid.
Okay, is the procedure different than what's happened in the past?
Enough to the degree that we should not award the bid.
All right.
Well, I want Okay. So the other bidders, this contractor we're talking about, how many, has Biazzi Landscaping, have they gotten the bid before?
They've had the bid before, yes.
Yeah, for the last 15 years.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the contractor or discrepancy in the bid. There's just a procedural defect in the bid process that I uncovered, and I'm not comfortable with us awarding the bid with a procedural defect within it. And once we went through that process, we also talked about expanding it beyond running it to the end of the month when we have so many other landscape things that we've been looking at as we delved in further to how we currently bid out and who gets what bids. So it's going to be a little bit more comprehensive and a little bit more clear, which is why we're not sure if it's going to be July or August.
And Commissioners, the manager's comfort aside, there's a defect. You can't award this bid. It has to be rebid. This is not discretionary. There's a defect in the bid. It needs to be rebid.
Thank you, Counselor. I imagine that eliminates some other questions, but does anyone else have any questions? All right, do I have a motion to reject the 2019 landscape maintenance bid proposal and amend the bid document to be rebid through December 31, 2021?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
You need to take public comment.
Public comment. Sorry. Please name and address for the record.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So as you know, I have mentioned here recently at a meeting and obviously many times to all of you behind the scenes that we have had bid irregularities. That's one of the elements of corruption that we are about to try and change. And so I would like to know what the bid defect was. May we understand what the bid defect was, please?
Would you like me to answer?
I believe that I don't have the answer, so if you do have the ability to answer, yes.
It was not advertised in a proper newspaper. It needs to be a newspaper of general circulation, not a small specialty paper. It was advertised in the wrong newspaper.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Do we have any other members of the audience that would like to make public comment on this matter? Did someone raise their hand? No? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So the motion passes. Now we will call for any comments from the public. Public comment on Public Works Public Works matters.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, and this matter goes across all committees. Obviously, what you see here is a ridiculous attempt to create a situation where everybody could be moved up and this spot in the back that is necessary. I have for Mr. Manfredi's sake and others, I have given him a multi-point email that showed the reasons that this is needed, including to accommodate disabilities, and yet all of you sit there in this most simple of things that's the easiest to fix that you can even imagine. Mr. Manfredi works at your pleasure, and if he's allowed to operate in this fashion, it helps us understand how people were lived in high-rises without the proper safety equipment, how buildings were built without sprinklers, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to fix this, and this is so overt, I can't imagine. I did ask beforehand, I wasn't here when you approved the minutes. Did we address the incorrect minutes?
We didn't determine them as correct or incorrect. We passed them subject to Manager Manfredi's review of your comments that you made to me earlier.
Did you make it public that they were overtly missing and said that there was no public comment at the end, when in fact there was not only public comment, but there was significant...
You asked me a question, I answered it, and now you're
Well,
editorializing.
this is part of my question, so please let me finish it.
No, it's not a question anymore.
so
You asked a
it
question,
w-
I answered.
So there
Your
was...
time's running.
So there was significant... I have time, thank you.
I know.
So there was significant testimony that clearly the township and all of you would not want to have in the permanent record, such that there were millions and millions of dollars at the end of every year while Penn Avenue residents and other residents were left to flood. And that testimony was eliminated from the meeting minutes. Nobody testified. There was no public comment. That's significant. That's not just a little error. Okay? So I'd like to know whether...
I can tell you, I didn't overtly, you're talking to me, I didn't overtly eliminate anything. We are going to address those appropriately and in accordance with the laws that we abide by with those
Right. And
meeting
leave me
minutes.
my last 15 seconds to say I'd like to know if Liz Vile made that error or if that error was made because she was asked to do that. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the public on public works matters? Going once? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Good evening. Welcome to the June 5, 2019 committee meeting of the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee. Welcome. And may we have a roll call, please? Here.
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 Here. Okay, having said that, let's have a motion for considering the approval of the minutes from the May 1, 2019 committee meeting. And do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you. And are there any comments or questions on the motion for the minutes from last month's meeting? Any corrections, addendums, deletions, additions? Having heard none, then let's get a second for the motion and we're good to go for the approval of the minutes from May 1, 2019. We're good?
I'll second.
Thanks. Okay. We have no presentations on this evening's agenda. We have no unfinished business. There are 3 items of new business for the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee. The first one being ACL-01-06-1319. That being a consider a motion approving the Switchville Crossing Planning Module and adopting Resolution 19-020 for plan revision for new land development, including the transmittal letter for planning module. And if we want to have a brief explanation of what that is from... Sure. Identify yourself for the record and who you are.
I'm Brian Regley. I'm one of the owners of Duke Real Estate Partners. We are the company that holds the property known as Switchville Crossings in Abington Township. I'm a resident of Cheltenham Township. I'd like to apologize for that. 815 Party Lane, Winco, Pennsylvania, for the record. So we are moving forward in the development of this parcel that you're aware of at the corner of Highland Avenue and Morton Roads in Abington, Pennsylvania. This is a project that was zoned and ordinance was passed well nigh 10 years ago now by this very township to allow us to move forward in developing an office building. There is a user on the first floor that will be a early childhood development center. There are some additional tenants that are under discussion in the second and third floor of what will be a 3-story office building adjacent to the LA Fitness and the Bernie's restaurant that are presently located on the site. I believe that the commissioners are likely aware of the fact that we also recently acquired from PECO the substation that is adjacent to Bernie's restaurant. We do not yet have a development plan for that building at this time, but we preserved it in cooperation with PECO because we felt that it had a tremendous potential value as a site that, obviously could be beautified and turned into something that is incorporated in the whole plan. So as part of that, we had to put together a sewer capacity module, which was reviewed by the township, was reviewed by Cheltenham Townships, which was reviewed by City of Philadelphia, which was reviewed by the county, and God bless us all. We are here tonight to ask you to allow that to move forward now to the full commissioners and to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Anything further?
I think that was sufficient.
Okay. Do you have any comment, Mr. Wrigley?
Just to give a little more specifics to it, we're looking for 27.8 more EDUs in fees.
So for the general public who may be watching this, explain what an EDU is.
EDU is abbreviation or an acronym for Equivalent Dwelling Unit. It's
And
a
what is that?
sanitary sewer term, generally describes how many gallons per day, average use per EDU. And in Abington Township, we use 265 gallons per day per EDU. So we, with the development, we estimated what the water use is, which is used for sanitary sewer purposes, divide it by 265, and we come up with the 27.8 EDUs. This site's unique because in 2010, there was a previous planning module done. Back then, they were based on 7,100 gallons per day. This planning module updates the LA Fitness site and the Bernie's Restaurant site to actual water use, which increases the EDUs. And we also added on the office daycare center, which is under proposal for this, and also the renovations to the former Pico Wingcoat substation. All that totals the 27.8 additional EDUs.
Any further comment on this project?
No.
Okay.
Like you said, everything's been approved by Cheltenham and Philadelphia, so it's just a matter of getting your approvals. If you concur, everything's put together and we submit it to DEP.
Okay, let's open this up to questions from the committee. Carol?
How are you? I just, this little note at the bottom, please note that the city of Philadelphia may rescind the capacity. How often does that happen? That came from Gary, no, it came from Eric Ponnert.
Yeah, not to our experience. I don't know if, George, you would have
I've
any
never
experience with that?
experienced any rescinding, but
It says, please note that the city of Philadelphia may rescind this capacity certification should an unforeseen capacity issue arise.
I'm going to guess, Commissioner Gillespie, perhaps without real knowledge, that there's a bureaucratic tendency in any circumstance where there have been previous disputes. And obviously you realize, I'm sure you're very familiar with the disputes with Cheltenham. Again, my apologies as a resident of Cheltenham. But I spoke to Mr. Ponnert directly during this application process. At no time did he ever raise any concern regarding the application that had been submitted and passed through.
Okay. All right.
Any further comments from commissioners on the, for anybody else from the committee itself? Hearing none. Commissioner Vahey?
Pardon me. Although this is separate and apart from the actual application in front of us, this project's in my ward. And Mr. Wrigley came out on May 15th and spoke at a town hall with my residents. The project was very well received. I appreciate your time coming out to speak with my residents. And although we didn't really discuss sewage usage at that meeting, overall this is a positive project.
Thank you.
Any further comments from fellow commissioners? Hearing none, I think we go to public comment, or let's hear any public comment. State your name and address for the record. Be mindful of your 3-minute time limitation.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. The EDUs have been regulated in Cheltenham since, I think it was 2005. And at that time, we had people lining up to get them, and we had a list that was in Larry Matteo's head and changed whenever Larry Matteo wanted it to. So we worked and worked and worked and worked and worked to get that list put down on paper. It was not an easy process, believe me. But we did finally get it down on paper. After it was down on paper, we still had people who had requested the EDUs, who somebody came along and got those EDUs before they got them. So my question here is, these EDUs that are being allowed by Cheltenham, where was the request on the list, and was there anybody who was ahead, who had asked earlier to have EDUs, who is having to wait? Is that happening here, or we had the request in time?
there's no one there's no need for anyone to wait for anything. There's sufficient number of EDUs to last at least 5 years for all the requests.
So there's no wait list anymore. I'm understanding that correctly?
The list is not for waiting. It depends on as the projects come in for approval, just like this. But there's sufficient EDUs for all the projects that are anywhere near contemplated for the next 5 years.
Okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any further public comment? So, maybe we can do this for next week's meeting. Do the motion. Do we have a second for the motion?
I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So we have two additional items on tonight's agenda. The first one the first one being ACL-02-061319. This is a revised motion to accept the request of the applicant Sussman Associates II, LLC, as the key dealership to take no action on this application and to formally accept the time waiver as submitted. And may I have a second for that?
Second.
So the question is, do we need to make your time waiver part of the evidentiary record, or we can?
You've already accepted the time waiver as submitted by your motion, so that would be fine.
Okay. But that, if need be, the time waiver is acceptable, we can have that as part of the record at some point if need be, just to make it formalized, because I know they signed the waiver, I believe.
They signed a waiver, and they also sent an email, so the email
Fair enough.
isn't part of the record, but it's
Want to make sure it's complete. Okay.
part of the file.
All right. Any public comment on the revised motion for ACL 02-061319? Hearing none. Let's move on to revised motion ACL-03-061319. This is a motion to accept, a revised motion to accept the request of applicant Lane Associates LP, Mazda, to take no action on this application and to formally accept the time waiver as submitted. And may I have a second on that, please?
Second that. Second.
Any comments from anybody on the committee? Any comments from anybody on the board itself? Hearing none, all in favor? Actually, public comment, if anyone wants to make public comment. Hearing none, motion passes, we're good to go. We move on to public comment regarding any general matters concerning administrative code and the land use. And if there's anybody with public comment, please feel free to come forward, state your name, and identify yourself for the record, please. Be mindful of our 3-minute speaking limit.
Good evening. I'm Khaki Evans from 1132 Lindsay Lane. When I watched the minutes of your last commissioner meeting, I was very happy to see that the comprehensive plan is being fast-tracked. Our Environmental Advisory Council will be meeting next Wednesday night. If there's anything that you would like us to consider, if you're on a fast track, we're on a fast track. We're very happy to be included in the process. It's great that you're doing a comprehensive plan, because if we do decide to pursue LEED certification as a city again, we need a comprehensive plan, and it's got to be within the last 5 years. As an individual, I also have a lot of visions. For instance, when the BET project was turned down, one of the things I wanted to advocate, that some of you had advocated for, and there was one vote against, and Commissioner Zappone, I was appreciative of that, because we have to fight for our seniors and people on fixed income, and I can always count on you, Commissioner Zappone, for being that voice. And this is part of a comprehensive plan, and there are actually guidelines from the U.S. Green Building Council about including set-asides for low-income and moderate-income housing. So we're ready, and if there's any information you want us to look at, please don't hesitate to include us, and we'll be discussing it next Wednesday. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Hearing, identify your name and address for the record.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So my first comment tonight is about the vacant property situation. So sitting in a vacant property meeting, we had, to set the scene, we have blighted commercial properties and landowners that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have heard me say myriad times that those landowners have not had the proper processes applied. They have not had regular citations. They have not been charged with going to court and getting a judgment for that, which is how our system is supposed to work, and then in court they're supposed to pay for the costs of going to court. Instead, we are setting up a system where the residents are paying for the blighted properties, and the recent one that was set up was that we are going to hold a festival, in essence, where we're going to match the property owners with the blighted property owners with investors and so on. This is a Chamber of Commerce duty. This is not something you take taxpayer money to put together, and then the beneficiaries of that taxpayer money are the businesses who profit at the expense of the taxpayers. So it was stated that that would fall onto the shoulders of the township personnel and the code department and clerical personnel as well. It's not in the budget. That was not budgeted for. So we would like to see that our budget is properly laid out. Another quick comment, and while I'm on the vacant properties, by the way, I would like a system set up where we really have control of a place where people can report vacant properties. One that I'm thinking of right now was reported a year ago. It was addressed once by the code department in a year's time that I can find in the documents, and then it was let go to be blighted for another year, which is unfortunate for the residents that have to live in that neighborhood and around there. When pressure was put on, something was done again, and that will lead to some results. The last thing I want to say is the BET project that was just mentioned. We need to understand how to approach our legislators to change the process for residents that are being challenged by text amendments and map amendments. We need to have firm rules that do not have residents drug back and forth to there's 10 seconds left, put your gavel down, okay, that are not have residents drug back and forth to it's almost time. You ready? Okay, go now.
For an additional 30 seconds, then the gavel comes
Yeah,
down.
I can't tell you how obnoxious that is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further public comment on any ACLU agenda items? Hearing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All right, please then. Good evening. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee meeting for June 5th, 2019 to order. And can I have a roll call, please? Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here.
Thank you. We're going to consider the minutes, please. Can we have a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes of May 1st, 2019, and I so move.
Second.
Any changes or corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the minutes have been approved. We do have one presentation this evening. And that's to acknowledge Christopher Platts, our fire inspector. He has been selected and appointed to the National Fire Protection Associate AFPA 10 Technical Committee on Portable Fire Extinguishers. The committee and panels are appointed by the Standards Council and typically consist of no more than 30 voting members representing a balance of interests, so it's very prestigious. And our fire marshal, John Rohr, I believe is going to come up and speak on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Manager Manfredi. I'd just like to take the opportunity. Some of you may have not met Chris Platts yet. Chris is a 12-year member of Abington Fire Company. He joined our staff this year in February as a fire inspector. Not only is he certified in the codes and inspections, he brings with him a Bachelor of Fire Sciences with a concentration in arson investigation. So a lot of good information coming in. But I'm especially proud to see Chris be selected to a National Standards Technical Committee. They review, they update, and they recommend all the changes for the national fire codes throughout the United States and Canada. So it's a big honor. All professions, the fire service, manufacturers, select general public, and code officials are eligible to apply for these committees. And it's based on their expertise, their career background, their interest in public safety, and their commitment. So for Chris to be selected out of millions of possible applicants to a 30-member committee, I thought is outstanding and shows the value of some of the people we have right here in Abington. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Chris. I'm assuming that you don't have any other announcements from the fire department? Okay. And we also have Rich Garrett from the Second Alarmers, and he's already turned his monthly report in. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to call on Deputy Chief Kelly Warner for her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of Chief Malloy, I'll be sitting in tonight, and I wanted to let the board know and the public know tonight that the streets are just a smidgen safer in Abington Township because last night around 9:40 at night, the Luke Oil located at Old York Road and Rockwell Road was robbed. At closing, the clerk was drawn to the attention to the door from banging from a person, and the clerk opened the door, and he was surprised to a handgun pointed at him. The clerk was then kicked and punched and put to the floor, and the suspect stole $5,000 and cigarettes. And the report came in to 911 that he was last seen running north on Rockwell Road. But I'm happy to say that a very astute police officer saw a male somewhat matching a description up north on Old York Road by the kitchen bar and thought that he should stop that male, and he did. And in very close proximity was a bag full of cash, a handgun, and gloves that the male had on. So we're very happy about that because we removed a gun and a career criminal off the streets of not only the Philadelphia area but Abington Township. So I'm very proud of that officer. And fortunately, the clerk is okay. He received only minor injuries, and certainly a little shaken, but we were able to return that money and remove that individual from the streets. So that's good news for us in Abington Township.
Do you have any other further reports?
That's it. That's good enough for tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Commissioner Spiegelman?
Deputy Chief Warner, I just want to say once again to the entire department and especially to the two arresting officers, from all of us in Ward 11, we are very grateful for that incredibly quick police action last night. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Anybody else? Thank you for filling in this evening, and thank you for your report.
Happy to be here.
Okay. And we have no unfinished business this evening, so we're going to move forward to the new business. PS1 is to consider a motion to adopt ordinance number 2165, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 14, Stop Intersections, and Article 3, Parking Regulations, Sections 25, Parking Prohibited at All Times, No Parking Between Signs, No Parking Here to Corner, to add stop intersections on Green Road, Eagle Road, Morden Road, Pembroke Road, Upsall Road, and Rubicam Avenue, adding no parking here to corner on Arbuda Road, Central Avenue, and Montgomery Avenue, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners, staff, audience? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS2 is to consider a motion to appoint candidates Christine Worrell and Raymond De Los Santos from the Civil Service eligibility list to the position of probationary police officer, provided they successfully complete the background, physical, and psychological tests and all entry requirements of a Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission for Act 120 Traffic effective August 12, 2019, and to appoint Ortiz de Jesus from the civil service eligibility list to the position of probationary police officer, provided he successfully completes the background, physical, and psychological tests and all entry requirements of a Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission for Act 120 training effective September 9th, 2019, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS3 is to consider a motion to adopt Resolution 19021, the disposition of Abington Township Police Department records according to township policy, and I so move.
Second.
Any questions or comments from commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That ends our formal agenda this evening, and are there any comments from the public that have to do with Public Safety Committee? Please state your name and address for the record, please. 3 minutes.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So the first thing I'd like to ask is, I have asked you to accommodate for disabilities and other concerns as well. And the lack of accommodation is so completely evident here. So are you in agreement with this, that this is a good way to go? And not to allow, from that vantage point, for instance, I can't see the screen all the way over here. But from this vantage point, I can not only see that screen, but I can see this one as well, much better. This one is harder for me, and they most often use that one with the laser. But you have no qualms with that. This is perfectly acceptable to you, even though you know they only have to move up about 5 inches to accommodate. Is that all right with you?
This is public comment. You can continue.
No, we're allowed to ask questions. If you can say, I don't answer any questions, the public should know that. Thank you. Yeah, the public should know that you don't answer questions. Okay, I believe we have at the current time a battle of the badges going on. We talked about conflicts of interest going on. I do understand that a blood drive is very much a public safety thing. It's wonderful that we do it. Taxpayer money should not be taken. So I'd like to I'm asking you now to accommodate a full accounting for the tax monies that are spent on all nonprofits. As you know, I've had a concern for all nonprofits, but in this particular case, this should be done by the public, and the township should accommodate making sure the public gets the information. It should not be taken tax money and then our police officers and a slick video made, probably at public expense. I'd like to know that, so if you'll help me get that information. Okay, we already talked about the fact that it was not okay for taxpayers to be funding nonprofits, to be making donations. I prefer you don't tax me, and I choose myself which nonprofits I would like to donate to. Okay, and that happens to be a very good cause, but that's not how it should be done. Okay, in addition, the blighted properties that I just mentioned, when finally action was taken on various blighted properties, the one that I just spoke of, it was a very forceful letter written about the public safety that was involved. So why did it take a year when it was public safety? I would like there to be a path where that can be discussed, so that's changed. Because, as you know, we have blighted properties throughout this township. There are 3 already just this week that I brought to the public's attention. Okay, so the Verizon renewal hearing, I would like to see if you would put a page up, please, because there are issues of concern that are public safety minded with what Verizon is putting on their channel. Thank you.
For your comments. Any other comments from anybody? Anybody from the public have comments? Hearing none. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It is my pleasure to call to order the June 5th, 2019 meeting of the Abington Township Public Affairs Committee. I'm going to start, please, with a roll call. Here.
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 Everybody's here. Approval of the minutes. This is a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes of May 1st, 2019, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from the committee? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. There are no presentations tonight. We have one item of unfinished business. That is PA-01-050919. Consideration of the Hunter Soccer Club proposal and possible agreement. This was a matter that was discussed, I would say, pretty profusely last time. Are there any updates, Manager Manfredi? Are there any updates that we should consider?
You received a draft agreement prepared by Solicitor Clerk's office that considered comments made by committee members at the committee meeting, any legal points that he felt was necessary to put in the agreement, and what was submitted as part of the proposal from Hunter Soccer blended into one draft proposed agreement for you to discuss publicly here this evening. I believe that Hunter Soccer has seen it. I know that you all have seen it. We've had a number of comments as well. So I think that it's frankly appropriate at this point in time to discuss it. There's only one point I want to make sure everyone understands, that the only subject this evening is the contents of the agreement. Last month, you indicated to them that the board was inclined to move forward with this. Didn't approve it, but was inclined to move forward as they had requested, and this would be the next step. But what's important to remember is, should the board approve this agreement, should the board recommend, or the committee recommend to the full board to approve this agreement, when that is done, that will only be the beginning of the technical review process of the site for land development. So all the specific questions about the turf and the site and the specific distances, that would all be part of the land development process. The issue in front of you is the agreement.
Thank you for that important clarification. So I guess if there are any comments or additional information from the applicant, we'll start with you, and then we'll open things up to the committee and the full board.
Hi, I'm Bill Manchester, President Hunter. No, the board has reviewed the agreement that you guys sent over to me yesterday, and we are fine with everything on it that we've written. The only one comment that I would make, it says on number 9, the upper field, after it's done, will be modified and dedicated. Donate and dedicate it to the upper field as a modified to the township. That field, after my last meeting, was already dedicated to a gentleman named John Hunter. There's a sign out there. It was done in 1995, I believe. So I don't know. It makes no difference to me, but I know that the Hunter family is out there in Abington, so they might want their father's or grandfather's sign still up there. But other than that, everything was fine to me.
All right. How about let's open things up to questions or comments from members of the committee. Jim? Commissioner, you can see that.
Thank you. I just had a couple questions on, in Section D, use of the upper field, Part 2, Subset A. It says, abide by all applicable regulations and policies of the Township's Department of Parks and Recreation. Does that mean that this field has to operate the same hours as all of our other parks and fields? Or does it have a different set of hours? I wasn't clear on that.
It would be the hours that are established by the township unless agreed to separately within this agreement.
Okay. All right. That was the only question I had. Thanks.
All right. And just, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
There are a couple of comments and highlights that you saw in the revision, such as fees being waived. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But it was just highlighted for your review.
Right, but obviously, no, we don't need to make any changes to it, to the...
Well, when you get to the end, for example, in that paragraph 5 where it talks about township permit fees will be waived, that will be stricken. This is in the raw form for everyone to see and discuss, so it's as transparent as it can be.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Questions or comments from the board in general? Commissioner Zappone.
Okay, so if our insurance rates go up, I assume Hunter's going to pay for that, right?
They are required under this to indemnify us.
Okay.
There should be no reason that our rates would increase when they're indemnifying, holding us harmless, because they would be any more than it would right now.
Okay, so any increase at all as a result of this, that's on Hunter, am I right? Not on the taxpayer.
You can certainly build in that should our insurance carriers identify an increase related to the change in the field, that be absorbed by Hunter. You can certainly.
I just want to make sure anything that goes up is on Hunter and not the taxpayers. That's a taxpayer's field. I pay for that. You all
Then we
pay
should
for
put
that.
a section in
so
here
I
that
want to
says
make
that.
sure any increase of any kind goes to Hunter, not the taxpayer. Okay.
And if the majority agrees.
Whatever increase, whatever. I don't know at this point.
And if the majority agrees and Hunter agrees, it should be a paragraph in the agreement.
Okay. How is this going to work as far as renting the field to other clubs within Abington? I mean, is anybody going to have a priority over that, or how is that whole process going to work? Who can answer that?
Yeah, you can. You guys can go ahead and answer that.
Right now, we have the permits for the field. We'll be applying for the permits again. We've been doing since 1962. And like I said, it's going to be a cash flow thing that if we do rent it out, it will be a local team, it will be a Jacob County team, a Central team, GYAC, and it would be half the cost of what they drive 30 minutes to YFC, okay, stuff like that. So, so that's what we're trying to do, and all that money is strictly going to the loan, because we're running the money.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's it for now. I know I made other notes here. But
Thank
that's it for
you.
now.
Thank you, Commissioner Zappone. Before we move on to anyone else, should we address now the insurance issue that Commissioner Zappone brought up?
I think if the committee is inclined to if you agree and you're inclined to add that to the draft agreement, that any and all costs that may arise as a result of this lease agreement be passed on and borne by the leasee, then that would certainly be something you can do. And before you pass it, if you choose to pass this up to the full board, that could be a recommendation.
Okay.
If who agrees?
If the committee agrees with what you just recommended,
You say if he agrees. Okay, the committee.
If the committee agrees with what you, meaning he, meaning you, recommended, then it would go up to the full board.
And my concern is that I want to make sure the taxpayer is protected.
So you would have to just, whenever you make a motion, you would amend the motion to say, for example, no fees, add that language.
Put a push pin on that so it doesn't get forgotten. Additional comments, questions from Commissioner Vahey and then Commissioner Klein.
So the term of the agreement is left blank. What's going on with that?
That is. Why don't you talk to what you're proposing and see if that's acceptable to the board?
As far as what?
The term?
The term right now is, I propose 5 to 6 years. The loan will be a 6-year loan. So as soon as the loan, but if we pay the loan off earlier, then everything's void, it's done. We're not going to be renting it out.
Okay. That term's fine with me.
Commissioner Klein?
Yeah, so Section D1E about naming rights, and I know you just talked about the field was already named, but we do have we have a field or a facility naming policy in the township, and I would like this D1E stricken because they would have to go through the policy that's set by the board already for any public fields or buildings.
All right, D1E. D1E, okay.
So you're saying it's not the John Hunter Field right now?
Well, if it's already that right now, then it would remain that, but any change would have to go through the board's policy of changing the name of the field, not something that's subjected to this agreement.
Yeah, no problem.
Right.
So,
But you're not actually, you're not proposing, you're not even proposing a name change.
no, I know, but there's a clause in here that would circumvent the township's policy to name a facility. I'm not suggesting changing it, but that should go through the board policy and not through this agreement. And I'm not sure exactly what Commissioner Zappone was asking, and, maybe what are we talking about? What costs are we talking about? I don't understand how our insurance premiums would be.
I'm not just talking about insurance, any expenses that come up or anything that goes over, anything that's going to affect the taxpayer because of the work they're doing, they have to accept that. Anything, I'm not just saying insurance. Okay. If anything goes up as a result of this, Hunter has to pay for it. Anything. I'm not just focusing on the insurance. I'm focusing on the big picture, everything. Okay.
Do you have any examples?
I don't have an example. I don't know what might come up.
I think I actually think insurance, in theory, could be a specific example because the presence of of a turf field versus a grass field, hypothetically. But I don't know, Manager Manfredi, Solicitor Clark, do you have any sort of thoughts on that? Conceivably, whether it's insurance or anything else to which Commissioner Zappone is referring, that might.
Well, the way your insurance would go up is obviously anytime you add any facilities or any equipment, your insurance broker or whoever's writing your insurance may end up increasing your premium because you have a new building or something along those lines. They may look at this and say this is a field that will require an increase in the insurance. There may be some costs that are associated with this, and I think that's what Commissioner Zappone is alluding to, that anything that we can say is identifiable to this field costing the township additional money, Hunter has to pay for it. And we can put that in the agreement if the committee wants us to. Okay. And then next week if the board wants us to.
And the applicant would be amended.
We see no problem with that.
Fantastic. All right. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Thompson.
For the record, who maintains the field now?
The township cuts it once every 10 days, I think, but we cut it regularly. I've sodded it. We've spent over $150,000 on sod soil over the last 5 years on that field. So I would say we maintain it probably more just for gameplay. But they cut it probably 9 weeks, 10 weeks a year.
Okay.
That's about the only maintenance that's done on the field.
Okay. And then as far, Penryn Park, this is in my ward, and this has been something that I've been speaking with the residents quite a bit about lately. Not from just my ward, but a number of your other residents have also reached out to me and asked questions about this proposal. There is a lot of excitement. Residents do seem to be very much in favor of this, so I would really encourage everyone to really consider and passing this forward tonight. As far as the liability is concerned, Hunter's already playing soccer on a field that is a township field. There's an inherent danger to sports, regardless of what surface you're playing on. So, yes, I understand the liability concern, but I don't know that the liability is really going to change drastically from an uneven grass surface to a turf surface. So please consider that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. What is the time frame? Are you hoping to have this ready for the fall?
The deadline was the May meeting, so we're looking probably the end of October. It'll be done.
So you'll be out a field?
We'll be out one field, yep.
Yeah, wow, okay, I know you have a lot of kids. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner
It'll
Klein.
be worth it, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Klein.
So the term of the agreement that Commissioner Vahey talked about, we said about 5 or 6 years, but then it also talks about in here a renewal of that term. From the last meeting we had, I thought the whole idea here was that Hunter would have this agreement in place so that they could collect the permit money for the field other than what Hunter's using it for, to be able to pay back the loan. You're telling me that the loan you think will be paid back within that 5 or 6 year period of time. Is that correct, your projections?
Right now, it's a 6-year loan, the last conversation with the financial.
So I guess my question is, why would we want to renew that? I thought the whole purpose was that the term of the lease would only go to the period of time that allows Hunter to recoup the funds to pay for the loan.
I think if I may be thinking what the township was thinking when they wrote this, that we're going to be responsible for upkeep at that point. You know, that's why they put that in there, that we still got to pay for the upkeep and stuff like that. You can word it different if you want. I mean, we plan on keeping the upkeep, so that doesn't bother me. But as far as renewing, so I can sublease, we're not looking to do that at all.
That's what I was going to say.
That's the last thing I want to do.
So should we be changing some of the term of the agreement in some fashion to say if the agreement is renewed past the original term, that it only talks about for upkeep and not the collection of permit fees?
Yeah, we won't be renting it out once the loan's paid off. Like we're volunteers. I'm not going around collecting.
Right. So, but isn't that's part of the agreement here, is that within the term of the lease, or within the term of this agreement, they're collecting the permit fees? Is that still the case? That's what.
No. When you say collecting the permit fees, are you talking about for those who use their?
We have the permit, and then we're subleasing out our time. So instead of my U12s playing, it might be U12s from Jenkintown, but it's still, we have the permit for that time.
But you're not paying for your permits, or you are paying for your permits?
We are paying for our permit.
During the term of the agreement?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've always paid for our permits.
They're not charging any fees for use, any township fees, period. What they were asking as part of this agreement from day one was that as a way for them to augment it, was they wanted to be able, and correct me, Bill, if I'm not accurate, that there was a question as to who is going to be using the field during the times you're not using it. And what they had requested was they would like to be able to reach out to other groups and lease that out, since they have the permit for and that's where this exclusive use came in, since they have the permit for the entire season, that if they had a period of days or weeks, that they would be able to rent it out, not as a permit fee, but to generate additional revenues for them to help reduce their costs. Is that not accurate?
That's correct.
That's what they were proposing. And that's, obviously, the board can agree to do that or cannot agree to do that, but that's what they were proposing.
But the purpose of that was also to help pay back the loan, correct?
The purpose of that is only to pay back the loan.
Right. So why would we want that why would we want that arrangement to continue on past the period of time that they need to pay back the loan?
I wouldn't think you would.
Okay. So then, should the agreement?
So that would be amended.
Do we remove that from F1? Remove the
Or
verb.
change it.
Commissioner Vahey?
We're not obligated to renew the agreement after 6 years.
You
Totally
can make this
discretionary.
agreement terminate
Yeah.
at the end of 5 years and start fresh. You don't have to renew it all. The whole point of the 5 or 6 year term was financing. So if the financing is done at 5 or 6 years, my recommendation would be you just terminate the lease. Because at the end of the 5 year term, this agreement also requires them to turn it over to us. So it's going to change the whole terms of the agreement anyway.
Right. Well, my point is I have no problem with the renewal term because it's totally discretionary. We do not have to renew after the term of the agreement.
The applicant, if I can extend what Commissioner Vahey is saying. To be clear to everybody, the applicant alone cannot trigger a renewal.
It says both Hunter Soccer and Township, but the point, I mean, I understand what Commissioner Vahey is saying. The other side of it is just give the term. If they want to renew it or they want to come up with an agreement after that term is over, then, you know, it's up. Things will change in 5 or 6 years. You know, there may be other aspects of this agreement that would change, as opposed to just creating a renewal based on the terms of this agreement. So, two ways of looking at it. I understand what Commissioner Vahey is saying, but at the same time, the whole purpose of this was to allow Hunter the time frame to collect fees in order to help pay back that loan to do the modifications. So,
Mr. Chair, I just think it's important to note, as I mentioned when we started this agreement was a raw draft agreement only based upon comments received by commissioners, their proposal, and some general language as a starting point.
Right, absolutely.
My recommendation would be that once we go through all of this and you have specific things that Solicitor Clark and I, prior to next week, fine-tune this agreement, put in language based upon your wishes that you vote on next week.
I have absolutely no problem with that. And with renewal versus no renewal, I personally have no dog in that fight. But we are going to need to make some motions tonight to begin the fine tuning process, aren't we? Or no?
We have to have direction, yes.
Okay. All right. There are no other comments from commissioners. Commissioner Weingart.
Thank you. Under paragraph C1A, there's a capital reserve fund. Looks like that Hunter's going to contribute to. Have you considered how much money you're talking about putting into that fund, or what you can afford?
No, that was new to us, and we're willing to see what you guys want to do, what that's for. You know, I would assume that that's for the life of the turf, replacing it in 10, 15 years, so the township's not held liable for that. We have every intent to prepare for that. The turf life is probably 15 to 20 years. The 10-year life is the warranty. The 8 to 10 is the warranty, but the life of the turf. So we definitely will be saving to replace that at one point, one day.
Okay, but the goal is for Hunter to be paying for that as opposed to the township.
The next in 10 years, let's say
Yes.
10, 15 years from now, I would say if we're in the same boat, yes. But
Okay.
I mean, who knows where the hell I'll be.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
All right. If we are finished with input from commissioners, I would recommend that we handle any of the necessary motions to make amendments to this, vote on those, and then before voting on the entire motion, open up to public comment so that it's a little clearer exactly what we're voting on, because we've taken care of the amendments already. All right, so let's go through. I guess the first motion would be, and if you can help me with the language with regard to Commissioner Zapone's input.
I don't really think you need to make motions on, well, if you're getting feedback, as Rich said, this is a draft agreement, and we even put things in that have question marks next to them to try to get some feedback from the board as to the way they want it. The motion is going to be to pass forward the agreement until next week. So I think you can just make one motion to pass forward. I think it might be simpler with your 5 members of your committee. Commissioner Zapone wants language inserted that says any increase in cost to the township will be borne by Hunter Soccer. If 5 members of your 3 members of your committee are okay with that, then we'll make that change.
We don't have to do a formal amendment.
I don't think we have to do that.
That makes things much easier, because certainly we've, as much as we discussed this last time, we've discussed it even more this time. All right, so Commissioner Bowman?
On that note, then, yes, that's fine what Commissioner Zapone wants. I don't think there will be any additional cost, but if you want that clause in there, that's fine. I'm fine with a 5-year term, and I don't feel the need to change the renewal clause. I thought that was good legalese, and we have to vote on it at the end anyway if we want to renew it. So I'd leave that alone. Thank you.
All right. So is the committee okay with the expenses clause as suggested by Commissioner Zappone? We're all good? Okay, we're good. Commissioner Klein?
I think their term of their loan was 6 years. Is that correct?
It was 6 years.
Is that the term of the agreement that you would prefer?
I would prefer 6, but at this point, I'll take what I can get.
And then the other thing is
Right, that's blank right now. I understand that. That was going to be my next point. 6, are we good with 6 years versus 5?
Yeah.
There's more direction for you, 6 years.
And the naming policy being taken out.
The comments about the naming policy, we're all in agreement. That's part of that's not subject to this agreement.
May I ask, what's the current name of the field?
John Hunter.
John Hunter Field.
Okay. So what I would suggest is that we will put in there that it will be named the John Hunter Field, and if there is any desire by Hunter Soccer to change the name going forward, they're going to have to abide by the township's
The
naming
normal
policy.
process.
Right.
Perfect. That's perfect. What else did we need to address in order to put this to a vote to move forward?
So in
my notes trail off.
In A5, would recommend we strike that township permit fees will be waived. There should be no waiver of fees.
Right, yes.
9, that it be dedicated to the township at the end of the 5 years.
Right.
That,
6 years.
If it becomes 6 years.
I'm
6
trying
years.
desperately to keep us all on the same page here.
That any maintenance costs as highlighted, and it could be not even dugout storage, but all would be absorbed by Hunter Soccer. Should have a discussion on whether they have priority use of this the whole time, and the issue of what can they do with it on downtime. I think that's something you still need to finalize. I haven't heard
We should probably
a
talk about
resolution
that.
to that.
We should probably talk about that now.
Okay.
All right. Okay, on the, Commissioner Bowman, start us off, please.
Well, on the downtime, that's when they need it to potentially rent it out to other soccer users, correct? So, I mean, they want exclusivity for the 6 years. They've already got all the permits, so I don't find the downtime, they should be entitled to the downtime and their own uptime. That's what they need it for.
I would like to ask Commissioner Thompson, given that, again, this is the ward you represent, and this would affect folks who live near the field, might be inclined to want to access it for some reason. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, we're okay with that. The bottom line is, if you're not using it, or if a sub-lessee is not using it, it's still open to the general public, correct? Our residents will be able to walk on that field and practice soccer or do whatever they want at any time.
All sports that don't damage the turf field are welcome when we're not using it. Absolutely. I mean, there was brought up to me that some people golf on the turf fields. That would not be allowed.
No lawn darts. Lawn darts are right out.
Yeah,
Thank you,
lawn darts.
Commissioner DiPulicio. That's very important. Very popular, lawn darts. All right. We have that.